You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
We are your hosts, Chris Infante, and I'm Bryan Cameron. What's going on, Chris? How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great. How about you?
I'm feeling exhausted. My daughter just turned 2 today, and we had the most extravagant 2-year-old party I've ever seen in my life yesterday. So I'm a bit...
I mean, every 2-year-old party is going to be extravagant, but I do want to take the time out to wish her a happy birthday. 2 years old, man. I've read your story, and I've read her story, your wife's story. If all of you have the time, take the time out to read up on Bryan and his family story. It's very inspiring. You know, being a teacher of grades kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. I've met a lot of inspiring children and children with really awesome stories. And your daughter is one, no different than them. So 2 years, and I wish all the best to you guys and many, many, many more years to come.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, she's a big blessing. And luckily, she was actually born the season of the Eagles Super Bowl win, so she's definitely a good luck charm so far.
There you go. You had a daughter this Super Bowl season. I got my appendix taken out.
Oh man, that must have been rough.
Different now. I had it taken out the day before the NFC Championship game.
So it's kind of like going in labor, right? I mean, you almost went the same type of pain.
I was in the emergency room Saturday night. Sunday morning, I wake up. My wife has my Eagles hat there for me. I'm like, there you go. See, that's why I married you. And then I was laying on the couch during the game. I'm trying my hardest not to jump up and scream, especially after the Patrick Robinson interception off Case Keenum. I'm holding my stomach. My wife's like, you need to calm down. I'm like, no, you need to calm down right now. You see what's going on up there? But I thought I was able to heal up and finally be off antibiotics by the time of the Super Bowl actual game. And cheering. I was jumping up and down. I have the video and everything still, and that hurt. I still feel that pain to this day. But we were able to get to the parade, and I was able to drink. So that's all that mattered.
It was definitely worth it. That's all you can really say. It was definitely worth it.
Oh yeah, all the pain, it's all the years of not seeing that, the pain of 2004 against the Patriots.
Man, I'll never forget that game. I was at a Sweet 16 party, and I was so mad that I was at this party because I wanted to see the game, and luckily, the party was across the hall from a bar, so I kind of snuck into the bar, sat really far in the back just to watch the game. I'm not gonna say what bar now because I don't want to get nobody in trouble over there now.
Underage people over in there.
Yeah, 16-year-olds just chilling in there.
15 years later, they're gonna close down.
Oh man, terrible. So what are we covering today, boss?
All right, so we're a few days. I think there's been 3 days of training camp so far, and we got some highlights from that. We got some questions coming out of there. Who's hurt, who's not hurt, who's standing out. We got this bogus. And I know this list is really it changes from year to year. It's not consistent. But this bogus top 100 list that only has, I think right now it only has from numbers 41 through 100. So the top 40 is still yet to come out.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on we have the next 4 games of the schedule. But this list, I mean, Carson Wentz at 96.
It's a bit mind blowing.
Someone I know was like, listen, in 2017 they had Matt Ryan as number 1, and then in 2018 they had him completely off the top 100 list. So so shame on you for taking anything into this. But still, it's like the top 5 from 2018 were Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Carson Wentz, Julio Jones, and Le'Veon Bell. Carson Wentz goes from number 3 in 2018. And that was with a torn ACL, coming off a torn ACL.
Yeah, definitely.
And so coming off a torn ACL, knowing full well that he was going to miss first few games of the season, they still put him at number 3. But he came back, still had a relatively great year for what he was going through. And I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that the list is really based on performance from last year and what players view the certain players to do in 2019. And to put him at 96, that's disrespectful.
See, and that part seems a bit iffy to me because it's a player ranking based list, and then if you actually heard all the players speak on Carson Wentz, even throughout the season, after the season, everybody has such high regards for him. So for him to be at number 96, where he's way behind Baker Mayfield, light years behind Ben Roethlisberger, who I believe was ranked number 44 on the list last night, and then a couple spots above him is Cam Newton. And Cam Newton, he did also go through a surgery. I think he had a shoulder surgery. Yep. So for him to have kind of like a down year towards the end of the year, but then Carson, everybody feels like he had a down year. But if you look at his numbers, his completion percentage jumped up, I believe, like almost 6 points. He finished the year at 69. He still ended up over 3,000 yards passing with 21 touchdowns and only 7 interceptions. Dak Prescott only had one more touchdown than him, and probably I think it's 800 yards more, and a lower completion percentage. So
garbage. I mean, I really hope
Prescott hasn't showed up on the list either. That's the scary part.
Yeah, I really hope him not showing up on the list means he's outside the top 100, because for him to be in the top 40 and Carson Wentz to be at 96, say what you want about, I don't know. I'm sure we're gonna have some Cowboys fans listening to this, especially Derek. Dak Prescott's not a top 40 player in the NFL.
Absolutely not.
I mean, even if you're looking at the whole list outside of quarterbacks, the best center in the league, Jason Kelce, 72. You still got, and even the best lineman on the Cowboys, Zach Martin, is at 59. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's better than Smith, especially with all the injuries hitting Smith. Smith's at 52. He's not much higher than him, but and you got Lane Johnson's son, DeMarcus Lawrence, at 45. Dak is not better than them. He's a glorified game manager who, when you take Zeke out of the lineup, which happened when he got suspended for all those games, Dak was terrible. And I was listening to ESPN, I think yesterday or the day before, and Dan Orlovsky was on it, and he was saying, Dak obviously is going to get a lot of money, which as Eagles fans we should hope we hope it's all guaranteed. He gets the Kirk Cousins contract, but
yeah, definitely.
But when Zeke is out in the lineup, and before Amari Cooper got there, he wasn't showing that he's a $30 million quarterback. He's above average. Eagles fans want to say he's terrible, and I've been saying, right, so far he's terrible. He's above average. He's not elite. He's not great. He's above average. Carson Wentz is great. He's borderline elite. He's great. But Dak Prescott, take his weapons away from him. What is he doing? And if you want to argue that Carson Wentz is the same way, 2016 when he was a rookie, played all 16 games, started all 16 games, 7-9. He still had close to 4,000 yards passing on a not great team.
Yeah, I think his best receiver at the time was Jordan Matthews, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, don't let hey Elliott Shore Parks, if you're listening to that, we like Jordan Matthews, but he's not a number one receiver.
Yeah, definitely.
His leading receiver that year was Zach Ertz, 78 receptions, 816 yards. Mm-hmm. Jordan Matthews, 73 for 804. Then after that, his leading receiver is Darren Sproles.
Yeah, so huge drop off.
So for him to spread the ball so much, and get it to, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different people caught a ball from Carson Wentz. sorry, 15 people. Carson Wentz caught one pass during the season. So 15 different people Carson Wentz threw the ball to, and he got close to 4,000 yards. To Ryan Matthews, Darren Sproles, Wendell Smallwood, Kenyon Barter, Byron Marshall, Terrell Austin, Aguilar, Josh Huff, Bryce Treggs, Ertz, Matthews, Burton, DGB, Dorial Green-Beckham, Brent Selleck, and Paul Turner. Paul Turner, Mr. Fan favorite, Paul Turner.
Mr. Preseason himself.
Mr. Preseason MVP. But, that was who he was working with his rookie year, whereas Dak was, obviously rookie of the year, but he had more around him. And then the year after, he has Zeke suspended, and he shows his true colors. And then Amari Cooper comes in the year after last year, and then Dak is elevated because he has that number one receiver finally in Amari Cooper. Now let's see what happens this year with Zeke holding out and Cooper wanting his money too. He wants to get paid like the best receiver in the league. Dak Prescott wants to get paid like the best quarterback in the league. Zeke wants to get paid like the best running back in the league. I hope this implodes. I really hope it does, because they still have to pay Byron Jones. They still have to pay Jalen Smith, who's a stud, who's absolutely
savage.
Stud. Like the him and Van Der Esch, they're going to be, people are going to castrate me for this, but they're going to probably be the best linebacking duo in the whole league for the next few years.
They're pretty scary. Van Der Esch is scary against the run. Like, this guy, I feel like nobody could really get by him unless he's out the game. It's mind-blowing to me. And he's like an upgraded version of Sean Lee at this point, so young in his career.
Right. And he's more durable. Well, the big question coming out of college was his durability, actually, because that's why he has the neck brace on and everything. Yeah. But they're great. But later on, like, they're gonna strap themselves so hard to these three players, maybe two, maybe Dak and Zeke or Dak and Cooper, but couldn't have happened to a better team.
Yeah, football is not close to basketball when it comes to money. I can't see them being able to keep anybody outside of the big three on offense, which sucks for Cowboys fans, because if you're strapped to Dak Prescott for the next 5 years or whatever it could be, you're really strapped to a game manager. And Amari Cooper, he's great. The name is great. The guy, has great highlights in the past. He had a great highlight season this year. But we all saw what happened after his first year or two in Oakland, and he had the same quarterback. And Derek Carr is a bit better of a quarterback than Dak Prescott is. Right. So I'm expecting to see Cooper regress greatly because of, I guess, I don't want to say his work ethic, but you can't change who you are at the end of the day.
Right. So right now, Cowboys have $23.7 million left in cap for this year. Next year, they have $74 million. But that's without, Tyron Smith. DeMarcus Lawrence's cap number goes up like crazy. Zeke is only at $9 million. He wants that higher. Their pending free agents for next year is Robert Quinn, La'el Collins, Amari Cooper, Randall Cobb, Jason Witten, who shouldn't even be playing anyway, Sean Lee, Byron Jones, Jeff Heath, Tavon Austin, Christian Covington, Jalen Smith, George Iloka, Malik Collins, Dak Prescott, Rico Gaithers, Blake Jarwin, Cooper Rush, who should be the starting quarterback. Dak stuff. But, so they have so many free agents next year for $74 million in cap room, when Dak probably was going to want maybe $20 million of that cap number. Zeke Elliott's going to want at least, his cap number next year is $9 million. He's going to probably at least want another $7 million on top of that. Amari Cooper's going to want close to $20 million, maybe $18, because he's going to look at the contract they offered Sammy Watkins. I think it was last year. They offered him, I think, a $16 million a year contract, and he went to Kansas City. So if I was his agent, I'm saying, listen, you offered that to Sammy Watkins, you better give us a blank check for Amari Cooper. We're not settling for less than what you offered Sammy Watkins.
And they already spent the first round draft pick on him too as well. So it looks like they have no choice but to pay Cooper at this point.
Right. Right. So if you're going to give up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper and only have him for a year and a half, that's questionable.
So then on this list, we only so far for the Eagles, we quarterback-wise, Carson Wentz seems to be on an uphill battle against all of the media pretty much just because of the injuries that have plagued them. You have Cam Newton in front of him. You have Baker Mayfield. You have Deshaun Watson, who at first I kind of thought about it. I'm like, okay, Watson's a bit, inconsistent. But then after looking at his numbers for last year, he did a pretty damn good job. You also have Ben Roethlisberger, who I can't believe even made past the 50 mark, in my opinion. I know he has a great past history with the Steelers. He's won championships and everything, but Roethlisberger is not the same player that he was not even 2 years ago.
He should have retired.
Yeah, he should definitely just retired on top.
As soon as they lost Brown, and Bell, he should have been like, I mean, I know, they still got James Conner, who's great. But
Schuster.
And Schuster, but he's done. But then you also get on this list, you got Kirk Cousins over him.
That's right. I completely missed that as well. What number was Kirk?
He's 80. No, he's 78.
Yeah, that's wild. Kirk Cousins had a very down year last year. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. He got all the guaranteed money, and now he's just lounging at this point behind the offensive line.
All right, and then you got Matt Ryan in front of him. You got like Baker at 50. I mean, I'm gonna admit that before I knew who Carson Wentz was, I was a big Baker Mayfield fan. I wasn't an Oklahoma fan or anything like that. I watched his tape in college. I was watching it, and I'm like, damn, I really want him on the Eagles because we were going through terrible quarterbacks. But I remember talking to someone on Facebook, and he's like, I'm a big Oklahoma fan. He's not going to come out to the draft this year. He's not. I'm like, damn, that sucks because he looks perfect for our offense. So when he finally came out, I was in I made a bet with some buddies of mine. I'm like, listen, if I guarantee you, if once Baker starts playing, they will have a winning record. And they're all like, no. I'm like, Baker has it. Baker has it. Nothing that the Browns have ever had before. Baker has it. And he makes everybody better. And I forget what I think he was like 8 and 7 maybe? No. He was 6 and 7, sorry, 6 and 7. So he was 2 games off of a winning record as a quarterback. But I guarantee you, if he was a starter at the beginning of the year, Browns would have had a winning record, 100%.
Yeah, he's definitely a very good prospect right now in the league. He definitely came out the gates running. My only fear is if you kind of see how he's reacted to the Duke Johnson trade request, his attitude towards it was a little off. So my curiosity leans towards Jarvis Landry and Odell now. 2 very big personalities, 2 very big stars that, in my opinion, could end up outshining him. So I wonder if that ends up getting to Baker Mayfield's head and he kind of goes into a little temper tantrum period.
I mean, Baker, those sidelines are going to be the team, their offense and defense is going to be fun to watch. But I think it's going to be more fun to watch the sidelines after an interception or a drop pass or anything. It's going to be fun because they're just going to blow up on each other. They're going to blow up on each other. But like, I'm not okay with Baker being that high above Wentz. Absolutely. But I'm kind of okay with his spot on the list because I really think it's going to be great.
So then above Baker, we have Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think they've announced any other quarterbacks since Baker.
No, the last QB on the list is Ben Roethlisberger at 44, and now I think it'll be numbers 31 through 40 will be coming out tonight. But we're still waiting on so Eagles wise, we only see 2. We got Jason Kelsey, and we have Wentz.
Which could be a good thing because Malcolm Jenkins has to be on that list. Zach Ertz has to be on that list.
Jenkins, Ertz, Lane Johnson has to be up there. Brandon Graham has to be up there.
Yeah.
I think Fletcher Cox. I don't know if we already said him. Fletcher Cox has to be up there. He has to be top 10.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. He's probably, in my opinion, the most underrated defensive lineman because everybody's so focused on Aaron Donald.
Absolutely. Yep. But if Aaron Donald didn't exist, Fletcher Cox is the best defensive tackle in the whole league.
Oh yeah, hands down.
Nobody. It goes Aaron Donald, number 1, and maybe a notch below is Fletcher Cox. He's not that far behind, but because I love you, Fletch, and I have here's a little nugget. A couple years ago, my wife and I always go to, except for last year, it was on a Thursday night, and the school nights for us teachers. We try to go to Giants Eagles every year at MetLife. And this year it's the last game of the season. It's kind of up in the air for us because my wife's due date is November 29th, and that's exactly a month after the due date, the Giants Eagles game. So we'll see how that goes. I'm leaning towards still going, but if you're listening, Bree, it's up to you, honey. So a few years ago, I was wearing Fletcher's jersey, and my wife and I snuck down to we were in end zone. A coworker of hers has season tickets to the Giants, and so he brings us to the Eagles Giants games, and so we were end zone. But at the end of the game, of course it was an Eagles win. At the end of the game, we went over to the exit for the players for the Eagles, and I'm there on the side with my Cox jersey on, and he comes up to me and he gives me his glove. So I have his glove up in my closet right now.
Oh wow, that's so lit.
Yeah. So one of these days, Fletch, I'm gonna get you to sign it. And I do. And whenever I gush over a player and they're younger than me, I feel weird. But he's so great.
He's a freak of nature. The guy, he's not. I think where you're kind of going with where you're gonna go with this, where you're going with what you're saying, he's not built like Aaron Donald. Because Aaron Donald's more of if you ever watch Yogi Bear, Aaron Donald's that buff bear that takes away the girl from Yogi, and Fletcher kind of built like Yogi Bear, but he's still crazily strong. He's a walking bulldozer.
I think he led the league. I think I saw on Pro Football Focus. I think he led the league in QB hits last year. He's going in there and he's terrorizing quarterbacks. It doesn't matter who's on him, what lineman, what Pro Bowl lineman you want to put on him, how many double teams you put on him, he gets through. And this year is going to be I'm guarantee you he gets another double-digit sack year because you double team him, you're letting Malik Jackson go. You're letting Brandon Graham go. You're letting Derek Barnett go, which, little spoiler alert for my bold predictions, I predicted Derek Barnett to have 12 sacks this year because the double team that Cox is going to command, Barnett's going to have a field day with these right tackles. They're not going to be able to double team him because if they double team Barnett, then there's Cox just blowing up the guard or the center and going through.
I absolutely agree. And one advantage that Donald did have over Cox this season was he had Ndamukong Suh right next to him.
Right. So
that was a big advantage.
You can't, when you have a line like that, when you have a line like what the Rams had and what the Eagles have, you focus on one player, everybody else is going to just destroy you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a field day.
Right. But, I'm interested to see tonight. I might not be awake when that happens. Right now, for all of you, because you'll be listening on Monday morning, right now it's about 6 o'clock. I'm going to be sleeping by 9 o'clock. I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. But I'll be interested tomorrow morning to look at and see who's the next 10 to be revealed and what quarterbacks they're going to continue. Because we know Pat Mahomes is going to be up there. We know Brady's going to be up there. Russell Wilson's going to be up there. Maybe Phillip Rivers. That they could, like we said before, if Dak is up top 40,
it's gonna raise Eagles Twitter hell.
Oh yeah, and even Jared Goff.
Oh my God, I forgot about him.
If either one of those are top 40 in the whole league, and Carson Wentz is 96, so these NFL Network people better stay off Twitter for the next couple weeks, because Eagles Twitter is going to be coming for them.
It's going to be really bad. If you thought the Madden Twitter was bad, just wait for this one.
Oh yeah.
So then now segueing from the NFL's top 100 list, we did have the beginning of training camp, as you did mention before. Is there anything you feel that we can take away with the good, the bad so far, outside of the mysterious Cre'Von LeBlanc injury that surfaced recently, which we will cover?
Sorry, Liam.
Yeah, Captain Cre'Von.
Liam is so sad.
Well, I mean, at least it looks like they're not trading him. They're not going to trade a injured quarterback.
I think this is probably of the two outcomes with LeBlanc not being at practice. I think, as much as you don't want someone to be hurt, this is probably more. Actually, no. If Cre'Von wasn't going to play for us because Mills is back, Darby's back, everybody else, and LeBlanc's good, I think Liam would want him to see him be traded so he can play, so he can show off his skills. But this does keep him on the team.
Yeah. So now we have three injured cornerbacks. We have Darby, who I don't think they've set a timetable for, but he's not on the PUP list. Mills is actually on the PUP list, and I think he was injured before Darby, if I'm not mistaken. Because he had that nagging foot injury for quite some time.
No, I think Darby was out before Mills.
Yeah.
Because I think Mills out in November.
Let me see if I look it up right now.
Darby's torn ACL November 11th, and Mills was out. Let's see, week 8 last year.
Okay, so it was a lot later.
So I guess they were around the same time. Because week 8 is late October.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Borderline, yeah.
So week 8 was the 28th. That was the London game. And Darby was 2 weeks later against New Orleans. 3 weeks later. No, sorry, 2 weeks later against Dallas.
So now with these two injuries, so far the first team reps have been going to Maddox and Douglas, with Jones coming in as a nickel cornerback, if I'm not mistaken, if I was reading right. So you a little surprised about Douglas over Jones?
No, because, Jones, as talented as he is and as much of a steal as he was in the draft for being a top 10 draft pick, sliding down there because of his injury, he hasn't shown much. He has shown glimpses of greatness, especially his one game back, a couple years ago when he came back from his Achilles injury. And last year he showed flashes, but he needs to show that he's healthy. Douglas, he's shown he's healthy. He's shown what he can do. So give him the shot.
I think I'm dying to see a Rasul Douglas breakout season, just because he's a local from East Orange. So I kind of grew up around that area.
So, hey, Rasul, you got two Jersey guys here rooting for you.
Definitely am.
I teach about 25 minutes from him. I know he's in Essex County. I'm in Morris County. So we're kind of neighbors, Rasul. So if you ever want to come up on the podcast, let us know. We'll talk about favorite Jersey spots, favorite places as a kid. I grew up in New York. I grew up in the Bronx, so I can't talk about much about Jersey, but I've been in Jersey since 2014, so I have a little bit of experience.
There we go. And I think so far my favorite takeaway from camp, I'm weirdly a huge Miles Sanders fan. Like, I want this kid to succeed so bad that I'm willing to exaggerate any move he does in camp. And the fact that they were kind of glorifying the way he was able to move in between tackles, break off of an open run. I truly can't wait to see this kid play.
Yeah, I think it is really looking towards Sanders is going to break that rookie mold of the Eagles, where rookies don't really play that much. I mean, they play, but they don't really start or get targeted that much on offense or get many snaps on defense. But Derek Barnett actually had a lot of snaps as a rookie, and he came through with, I think, 5 sacks as a rookie. But it looks like Sanders is going to, instead of being a 1-2 punch Howard Sanders, maybe mid-season, maybe before, it's going to be 1-2 punch of Sanders Howard, and really get Sanders in the running for Rookie of the Year. So we'll see how that goes, but he's showing a lot of promise. What I'm looking forward to is this linebacker battle that's been going on, and Alex Singleton, he's been ripping people apart.
That's all I've been hearing. I've been hearing about the kid's hair, the way he's moving and everything, on special teams as well.
He's looking like the next Brian Brayman for the Eagles, maybe a little better than Brian Brayman. Brayman was such a standout on special teams, especially when we got him back for the Super Bowl run. And they got the same hairstyle, they got the same play. He, for those of you that don't know Alex Singleton, he was undrafted in 2015, and he signed with the Seahawks. And then, like a couple of days later, he was released by the Seahawks. And then he caught on with the Patriots. Not a couple of days later. He signed with Seattle in May, got released in September. So he went to training camp with the Seahawks and everything, and then got released. A few days later, he was signed to the Patriots practice squad, and then released a week later. So the Patriots didn't want him. And then in December of 2015, signed to the Vikings practice squad, then released in April. So he bounced around 3 teams before finally making it to the CFL. I guess they have a rule where if you're undrafted or a free agent in the NFL, I don't know how it goes, but they had a CFL draft in 2016. And he was drafted with the 6th overall pick in 2016. He's actually from Canada. No, he was born in California, but some rule that I guess he was a Canadian citizen back then because his mother was born in Toronto. Mm. So he qualified as a Canadian national player back then. But then he signed with the team in May 2016, and then he's had great 3 years in the CFL. Last year he was actually second All-Star team CFL, and he had 123 tackles for the CFL, and I think he won. Him and his team won the Grey Cup, which is the CFL Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And he was actually Defensive Player of the Year in 2017 for the CFL. So he's despite only having 4 sacks in his career, 3 years, only had 4 sacks and 1 interception, 328 tackles in 3 years with CFL. The talent's there, and he's already shown it. He's lighting up. Like, I think one of the tweets that I saw was that he lit up Boston Scott. And
I did read about that one, yeah.
He's another Liam Jenkins crush. So for him to take out Boston Scott, who's very talented, he's turning some heads. He might sneak onto this roster as a special teams ace. Maybe even grab some snaps and during actual defensive snaps. But I wonder who's that's gonna be the expense of.
That's gonna be the scary part, I think, because they're pretty stacked. They have Zach Brown. They have Bryan, I believe, is still injured. Another thing, but they didn't put him on the PUP list. Then they have LJ Fort, who they signed for, I think it was almost like a 2 or 3 year deal.
Right.
And Warlow they re-signed as well. So I can't see them not keeping him, just for the fact that if he's great on special teams, the Eagles love players that could be multitasking throughout the game without issues. Which is one thing that they love about Matt Collins as well, who actually showed up to training camp alive and well. According to
Matt Collins is alive. Matt Collins is alive. He has
long sleeves, long pants, and everything.
And he's flossing. He's ready to floss again. He's back. Welcome back, Mac.
So it's definitely a good sight to see that. One player I haven't really heard much about, which I'm a little, I wouldn't say concerned about, but I'm a little curious, is Arcega-Whiteside hasn't made any crazy noise as we all have been kind of expecting him to so far in training camp. I know it's only been about 3 or 4 days, but
he has been making noise. You didn't see that Twitter video of him singing on the stage?
No, I missed that one.
They had their rookie concert that they have every year, and JJAW, he's up there singing his heart out.
I gotta check that one out.
It's actually pretty good, and so he's making some noise in that way. But I know we haven't really heard of his name much. But like you just said, it's been 3 days training camp. He has plenty of time to show off, So I'm not worried about him.
Yeah, the biggest obsession so far has been Carson Wentz and Deshaun.
Right. No, I'm so excited to see Deshaun Jackson first game of the season.
I can't wait for the first touchdown.
I don't care about preseason. Like, they're not going to play that much. Just give me first game of the season, first play from scrimmage. Just bomb it to Deshaun, even if it's incomplete. Just seeing him sprinting down the field to try and get Wentz's throw, which I've seen. I've just noticed for a few days now. They've been saying that Wentz is overthrowing Deshaun.
Yeah, on 2 plays back-to-back days. And they said it was the same routes as well. So that could be a iffy thing, but I'm pretty sure they'll get it down packed soon.
Yeah, so not questioning Wentz's arm strength anymore, because if you're overthrowing Deshaun Jackson,
then you got a strong arm.
You got a pretty strong arm.
So another thing that also came out is the Eagles made a big signing. Usually, come August, they make this big signing that's usually good, but this was a little iffy. They signed cornerback Orlando Scandrick from the Kansas City Chiefs, a former Cowboy as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I know me and you were on the same page about this.
He was apparently, like, I didn't really follow him much last year because he was on the Chiefs. But apparently he was burnt toast last year. He was another Bradley Fletcher or Kerry Williams last year with the Chiefs.
Yeah.
But he's not terrible. He was with Dallas for 9 years, and he's not also very durable either. He's only played 16 games. He's been in the league 10 years. Played 16 games 4 times. He's only started the majority of games since 2013. From 2008 to 2012, he didn't start more than 7 games a season. Prior to that, it was like 2 games, 4 games, 3 games, 3 games. But then 15 games, 14 games, 10 games, 11 games. Last year was 7 games only started with the Chiefs. But I do want to give him a pass for last year because the Chiefs' defense is always terrible.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's a consistent thing.
So he was pretty damn good with the Cowboys. So when you go to the Chiefs and you have a defense that's never really good, you have to really chalk it up to the coaching more than the player. The coach may not be putting him in the right positions. And I do think he'll have a productive year if he gets the playing time with us. I just really hope the playing time doesn't come, because if it comes, that means a lot has gone wrong before that for him to come on, unless he just balls out in training camp and forces his way into the lineup. But for him to jump over Mills and Darby and Jones and LeBlanc and Douglas and Maddox,
that's a leap. That's a leap of faith.
That's a leap, But I wish him the best. He's on our team now. I have to wish him the best. But for him, I really hope he doesn't see the field, because then everything's gone wrong.
Yeah, if he sees the field, then it's gonna get a little scary out here.
So then, yeah, man, it's just been great to see football back.
Oh, it's amazing, bro.
Highlights, and it's great. I'm counting down to August 8th. That's our first preseason game.
We got the Titans, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. I think you're correct. But it's going to be great. Just seeing Wentz under center for the first time since November.
I can't wait.
It's going to be great.
And then next week they have their open practice, which during our podcast, even though it's going to be kind of late, we'll have one of our colleagues, David, actually phoning in from the stadium to give us live feedback, to see how fans are reacting, to see how the Eagles are looking during practice, to see if Wentz is overthrowing Deshaun, to see all the good stuff.
That's right. And you know what, David, when you're there, and we'll talk about this more, we'll get some fans on here too. We'll get their input, because this is what we do. We do this for the fans.
Absolutely.
We ourselves, but you guys, those of you listening to us, we had 100 plays of our podcast last week, episode 1, and that was really only on one medium. Now that we're on Spotify and hopefully Apple after this, you guys listen to us. You're dedicated followers of Philly Sports Network. We're very, very, very thankful for that. But we want to hear from you guys too. So when we're all around on our Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, asking for your questions, we really, really want to hear from you guys. What do you have to say? What do you want to know? And we'll do our best to answer those questions. But when David's out there at open practice, we definitely will try to get some of you, some of your input for our podcast, so your voice can be heard all over the place.
Absolutely. One thing about PSN is that we really want to be the voice of the people. We're fans ourselves, so it's just fans talking to fans at the end of the day, which is the glorious part about all this.
Speaking of being fans ourselves, before we move on to our schedule breakdown that we started last week, how did you become a fan, so everybody can know about that?
So my first game that I ever saw was Giants and Eagles, and a friend of mine at the time, he was a huge Giants fan, so I'm watching this game, and I'm seeing McNabb throw to Westbrook. I'm seeing Westbrook just dart all over the field. Then Bryan Dawkins just sealed the deal for me at the end of the day. And it was just like, it was meant to be. From there on out, if I'm not mistaken, it was probably like 2000, if I'm not mistaken. I was very young. So at that time, I was very heavily into Madden. I used to watch all the games and everything that when they came on, because I didn't know anything about NFL Sunday Tickets. I was oblivious to it at the point. But as time grew by, it just became more and more. And I would say that the year that my daughter was born in 2017, we had to stay out in Philly like very, very often. My wife had to stay in the Camden, actually, at the Ronald McDonald for some time. So next to Camden is Cherry Hill, and we used to visit the Eagles Pro Shop. I went to the Eagles Open Practice. Several Eagles players. That was the year that we signed Alshon. So Alshon was actually at the Children's Hospital with Nigel Bradham, with Joe Walker. And Torrey Smith was actually running around the hospital in like a cowboy outfit for some reason. And my wife got the autograph from them. Ironically, I was not there. I had to go back to work that day. So my wife got their autographs. So the autographs actually, as well, sitting in my closet, waiting for me to frame it. But that really just sealed the deal for me. What about you? Because you grew up in New York, so it must have been harder for you.
Yeah. So I was born and raised in the Bronx. I spent the first 13 years of my life in the Bronx. And before I get into being an Eagles fan, just put it out there. I know I said it on the first episode, but if you didn't listen to the first episode, I'm a Red Sox fan. I don't know how I became a Red Sox fan. I just remember being a Red Sox fan, and that was tough growing up in the Bronx. But I had a best friend, and at the time, I haven't spoke to him in years, but because we grew up in the Bronx and then we lost touch. But I remember him being a Rams fan, big time Rams fan. Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, and when the Eagles faced them in an NFC Championship game in 2000, he was like, "Oh, you got to root for the Rams with me." But I remember thinking to myself, and now this is 19 years ago. I remember thinking to myself, everybody who sees us thinks I always follow my best friend. I follow him and do everything. They don't think I have a voice for myself. So, and I'm 10 or 11 years old at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be an Eagles fan. I'm going to root for the Eagles. Eagles lost that game. But ever since then, I made sure, the Eagles were my team. And that has blossomed to this that you're listening to right now. And I used to be, into that, in the 2000s decade and maybe a little bit of the 2010s, I was pretty much split between baseball and football. My fandom for the Red Sox grew, especially with I've been able to see 4 World Series titles since being a Red Sox fan. But, my fandom for the Eagles has definitely surpassed my fandom for the Red Sox. I find myself sometimes when I'm at work, some of my coworkers are like, "Oh, did you see the Red Sox game last night?" I'm like, "Oh, wait, did they play?" Who did they play? But I do know.
Coverage.
Right, I was tweeting about the Eagles all night. But I do know, if you're listening to this and you're a Yankees fan, I do know Red Sox go for the sweep tonight. Tomorrow morning, when you're listening to this, I may be eating my words a little bit, but tonight, 4-game sweep.
Uh-oh. Hopefully you didn't upset too many fans out there. But Eagles fans and Yankees fans don't really go hand in hand. It's kind of more like if you're a Cowboys fan, then you're a Yankees fan, because that was a 90s thing.
If you're a front runner.
Correct,
if you're a 90s kid, you're a Cowboys fan, a Yankees fan, a Lakers fan.
Yep, absolutely. Or Bulls fan, depending which
or a Bulls fan, right? I remember seeing, and I'm gonna shout out Alex McIntyre. I remember seeing on her Twitter, some guy was trying to flirt with her on Twitter, and she was like, "Let me guess, you're a Cowboys fan?" And he's like, "Yeah." She's like, "All right, let me guess, you're a Yankees fan?" And he's like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Let me guess, you're a Warriors fan?" He's like, "Yeah." And like, typical. These guys, right? No, so nowadays you're a Cowboys fan, Yankees fan, and a Warriors fan. If you're that trifecta, stop watching sports. You're just trying to be so they want you're being that typical fan that's like, you know what, I don't care about sports so much. I'm just gonna wear the jersey of a team that's winning, so I can feel like a winner.
The trendy fans. That's what we're gonna call them on this show. Trendy fans. So speaking of fans, now we get to look at week 5 through 8, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
So who are we looking at week 5 so far for the Eagles?
October 6th, we are home facing the New York Jets.
Ooh, Le'Veon Bell's in town.
Oh yeah, so he's gonna be definitely getting some boos for dissing the Eagles, but we did better.
We got better running back group.
Right. So, I'd rather have Howard and Sanders and Sproles than just one Le'Veon Bell.
Correct.
So there's going to be a lot of people at that game doing our podcast, flipping the birds at Bell. But they've had quite the offseason. They have a new head coach in Adam Gase, who, if you've been living under a rock and haven't seen that meme of him and his eyes bugging out at the press conference, you should definitely look that up.
I hate those pictures, bro. He looks crazy.
He looks like this. He looks like one of those dolls. Those rubber dolls. When you squeeze them, the eyes pop out. So they got Le'Veon Bell. They overpaid for linebacker C.J. Mosley. They got probably the best defensive player in the whole draft, Quinn Williams.
Oh, that kid is gonna be a star, man. He's gonna be phenomenal.
He's not gonna do much against us because we do have the best offensive line in the league. But
Correct.
outside of our game, he's probably gonna be defensive rookie of the year.
I wouldn't doubt it. I honestly would not doubt it.
No disrespect to Nick Bosa. No disrespect to any of the defensive rookies out there. Quinton Williams is another level. He's going to be the next Fletcher Cox, if not Aaron Donald.
I agree.
I think I saw that all of his tape, all of his measurables met either Cox or Donald at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
So they got old rival Jamison Crowder, who, if he can stay healthy, he's a really good slot receiver.
Yeah.
But that's if he can stay healthy. They got Kalichi Osemele, the guard from the Raiders, who was a former, I believe, All-Pro. And their biggest addition is probably their new general manager, Joe Douglas.
Joe Douglas.
We miss you, Joe.
Definitely do.
Thank you for bringing us all these great players, and I know you're gonna do the same for the Jets, the poor Jets, who I know so many Jets fans. My father-in-law is a Jets fan. My wife was a Jets fan growing up, and so I can feel their pain. Actually, I went to college. I went to SUNY Cortland in the middle of New York, way up in the middle of New York by Syracuse, and the Jets actually had training camp up there for a few years at my college.
Okay.
So I know many sad Jets fans. So I feel for them, but this is not going to be a game that they can bring home. Sam Darnold, he's good. He's going to show that he's good. And actually, Sam Darnold's first ever pass in the NFL was a pick six. That was probably the most Jets thing that could ever happen to a rookie.
Absolutely. Completely agree.
But they have Robbie Anderson, who a lot of Eagles fans wanted last year at the trade deadline, and we got Golden Tate, who I'm not going to talk about Golden Tate today because he's I got some ill will towards him. So they got Robbie Anderson, 752 yards, but he's a big-time deep threat. Jamison Crowder, who is a very good slot quarterback when healthy. They have Jamal Adams, who's
a savage.
Such a dynamic safety.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has a personality that fits it perfectly as well. That's the funny thing.
Yeah, he's as good as Jalen Ramsey is, Jamal Adams can talk the talk and back it up. Jalen Ramsey has his days. He's a great cornerback, but sometimes he's not there, But Jamal Adams, no matter what he says, he backs it up.
Yeah, I agree. So being that so many very depressing feeling Jets fans, who do you have taking this game, or should I even ask who you have taking this game?
I mean, it's prior to this game, the Jets are facing the Bills, the Browns, and the Patriots. They have a bye. They have a very early bye. So it goes Bills, Browns, Patriots, bye, then the Eagles game. But the Jets, outside of Jamal Adams, they don't have a very good secondary. They had Morris Claiborne last year, who was terrible. I think he's a free agent still.
Yeah, he's still a free agent.
So they lost Buster Skrine, another cornerback. That their passing defense last year was 24th. And their rushing defense was 26th. So they addressed it in C.J. Mosley and Quinton Williams, but corners, they didn't really sign any corners. So I don't know if they drafted any, but I wrote down in my article, look for a lot of 11 personnel or 10 personnel during this game. We might not see a lot of Dallas Goedert in this game. We might see a lot more Matt Collins, Nelson Aguilar, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, a lot of Deshaun Jackson, a lot of Alshon Jeffrey, because of their corners. Their corners
a lot of speed going around.
A lot of speed going on in this game. I do think the Jets are going to score a lot. I think they'll probably get at least 20 points because you got Bell, you got Robbie Anderson, who's probably going to fly by Mills. You got Jamison Crowder, but The Jets aren't going to win this game. Eagles are going to win.
Yeah, I think I'll get on the same boat as that. I can't see the Jets I honestly can't see the Jets having a very successful season because I feel like they had a very New York offseason, which means they spent a lot of money for a lot of big names, just like the Yankees used to do in the early 90s. But the big difference, the Yankees had the right manager and the right skipper to lead the way, I would say. And I'm not a Yankees fan by far at all, but that's just my analysis on that. So I feel like the Jets are kind of in the same market as the New York Knicks right now, per se.
Thanks. I will say, growing up in the Bronx, if you weren't a Knicks fan, it was worse than not being a Yankees fan. But I was a big time playing basketball my whole life. I was a big time Kevin Garnett fan.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to that, I was a Timberwolves fan just because I liked Wolves. I don't know. I was a Timberwolves fan, but once Garnett came into the league, I became a diehard Timberwolves fan. The Knicks were always my second team, but it was kind of like diehard Timberwolves, diehard Knicks, different conferences, so it was fine. But once Isaiah Thomas came into the fold and traded away Canby, and I was done with the Knicks as my 1B. Now they're still my second favorite team. With the Timberwolves, no matter how bad the Timberwolves are, that's expected. You expect the Knicks to be bad, but being in New York, it's not allowed. So I just their mediocrity and James Dolan. We're gonna keep it Eagles before I get angry at basketball.
Got you. So who do we have next on the schedule?
So we got October 13th. It's away at the site of the 2017 Super Bowl champions Eagles, the Minnesota Vikings, away in the house that Nick Foles hoisted up the trophy against Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. So last year their rushing offense was abysmal because they lost Dalvin Cook pretty early, but so just to be quick. They lost a lot. They lost Sheldon Richardson. They lost Latavius Murray. They lost Sendejo. They lost offensive tackle Michael Rivers. They lost guard Tom Compton. They lost defensive tackle Tom Johnson. They only gained two draft picks worth. Talking about Garrett Bradbury, center, Irv Smith, tight end, and a guard. So besides all that, Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are good. They got Dalvin Cook back. Eagles are going to defend their championship turf. Sorry, not Cowboys, Vikings fans, but
Cowboys is still stinging right now.
yeah. Then you're not going to score your way in this one. Eagles are going to win.
Yeah, I think I would take the same thing just for the fact that the Vikings. I think we lost last year, if I'm not mistaken. It was Kirk's first time again.
Yeah, we did. Yep.
So I think it's kind of a payback game because last year it was just a weird thing where we couldn't close out games. And the Vikings came in and just kind of trampled all over us. But I definitely expect us to go all out. I don't think this is going to be a game where it's going to be Kirk Cousins showing up, in a sense. So I definitely have Eagles taking this one.
All right. So next, speaking of the Cowboys, October 20th, away, Jerry World. So we got Cowboys. Cowboys are going to have a good team. We're finally back to that big time rivalry that we saw in the 90s. I mean, and the 2000s of just Eagles and Cowboys back and forth. The Cowboys got Robert Quinn, defensive end, who was all pro a few years ago. Not so much anymore, but they got Christian Covington from the Texans, who's actually very good in his limited time. Randall Cobb, who's always hurt, but he's good when he's not hurt. George Iloka, safety. He's former Bengals safety. Went to the Vikings last year. They really wanted Eric Berry or Earl Thomas, but Earl Thomas went to the Ravens. Eric Berry's still a free agent.
I think his price is too high as well. That's why he hasn't been signed yet.
Yeah, definitely. Berry's great, but the price he's asking for with all his injuries and unfortunately the cancer he battled a few years ago, that's definitely scaring people off. And then you have big time addition out of the broadcaster booth, Jason Witten coming back.
Yeah, he lost his hair during the transition as well, apparently.
Yeah, but they lost Cole Beasley, who really every time you saw Cole Beasley against the Eagles, he always seemed to have that big catch. He never had the totals. He never had the stats to back up his play, but it just seemed like he always had that big-time first down catch.
Yeah, he always stuck it to us, no matter what it was.
Just to stick the nail in a game.
Yeah.
So he's on the Bills now. They lost David Irving, who was very, very, very talented, but he decided to quit and just go smoke weed for a living.
Because that guy.
Yep. He said on Instagram Live, he was like, Jason Garrett told me to quit, and so I quit. They lost Randy Gregory, who was suspended again, but Cowboys decided to extend his contract, even though he's suspended. And they lost Jeff Swain, one of their tight ends. So, this is going to be such a great game just because of the battle between Lane Johnson and DeMarcus Lawrence, who DeMarcus Lawrence, for those of you that don't remember, he made the tweet, the richer they get, the better it feels when we humble they ass. He didn't say ass on Twitter. He put A asterisk because no one knows what that's going to say. But then Lane Johnson they just went back and forth on Twitter. DeMarcus Lawrence, who has never had a sack on Lane Johnson, Cowboys fans want to say, well, you can watch the tape and see Lawrence beating him when Wentz rolls out. But that's when Wentz rolls out.
That's a whole different ballgame.
What tackle doesn't get beat when a quarterback rolls out? When Wentz is in the pocket and Lane Johnson doing his job of protecting a quarterback in the pocket, DeMarcus Lawrence can't get past him. So, to keep a long story short, who knows if Zeke is going to even be in this game, depending on how it goes this summer. But regardless of where he is, regardless if Zeke's in or whatever, Eagles are going to make a big-time statement, and they're going to beat them at Jerry World. They're going to beat them in Dallas, and they're going to be 2-0 in the division.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big-time statement game. The way I'm thinking about this game is kind of recapping back to 2017 when they came into Jerry's World and they just stomped the life out of the Cowboys. So I feel like the Eagles will bring that kind of revenge feeling back to Jerry's World, and I think they definitely take this one. So we have so far, who's the first team? It wasn't the Vikings, right? It was...
No, that was...
the Jets.
The Jets. So right now we're 3-0 after both of us are 3-0 in the second part of the schedule. And our last game that we're going to talk about right now is the Bills. The Bills. Sorry. The Bills.
But, do you think this is a trap game?
See, their off season, they have a great defense. They were number one in the league last year in passing defense, middle of the pack, 16th in rushing. They got defensive tackle Ed Oliver in the draft, who's great. They signed 2 cornerbacks in the league to further strengthen their passing defense, which again was first. They were 9th in the league last year in rushing offense because despite his size, Josh Allen can run. Josh Allen can. He had a couple games where he had close to 200 yards rushing, I believe. He hit over 100 yards rushing a couple games.
And the Eagles kind of struggle against the running quarterbacks as well.
They do. We don't want to talk about Russell Wilson too much. Yeah. But Josh Allen, big time arm, big time legs. But you got former Eagles great LaShawn McCoy is still there, and you also have probably a much larger Eagles great Frank Gore signed with the Bills.
The legend himself.
The legend who should be in the Eagles Ring of Honor. But they got him. They got Cole Beasley, who we just talked about with the Cowboys. They drafted Cody Ford, who was drafted a lot later than people thought, and they got Devin Singletary, who was a running back that a lot of Eagles fans wanted on this team. And they only really lost Kyle Williams, who was a great defensive tackle until he retired, and they lost Charles Clay, tight end, who wasn't really that good for them anyway. So, again, I went to school in Central New York. I went to school with a lot of Bills fans. Bills fans, sorry, Eagles fans, sometimes their fandom is a lot more strong than ours because they've been through a lot as Bills fans.
Yeah,
I know we've been through a lot too, but at least we didn't lose 4 consecutive Super Bowls. But this does feel like a trap game. I just hope that our linebackers are healthy during this game, because they're gonna get run on. They're gonna get really, really run on. I mean, despite Beasley being there, they got John Brown too from the Ravens, big time deep threat for Josh Allen's arm. Their passing offense last year was 30th, and it's going to take a lot more than Cole Beasley and John Brown to fix their passing offense. But they're going to run, and they're going to run, and they're going to run between Allen on maybe on reads on the run pass RPOs with McCoy and Frank Gore and Devin Singletary. Actually, who even knows if McCoy's going to be on the team at that point? Because with Frank Gore and Devin Singletary, you're pretty good, and they might not want to have McCoy's contract anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But it's such a hard game to call, because it can be one of those trap games, one of those games that the Eagles are looking towards the next week, and but it's going to be cold. It's going to be end of October. It's going to be cold. It's going to be Buffalo. I hope to be at that game. It's a 6-hour trip for me, but I just drove 10 hours to South Carolina a few weeks ago, so this is a cakewalk for me. But and I have a lot of friends up in Buffalo that I hope to go visit and see. But despite that, it might be reminiscent of that snow game years ago with McCoy against the Lions, when he ran all over the Lions in that snow game, when it was just a blizzard out. It might very well be snowing at this game, but I still see the Eagles winning this game. It's going to be hard. It's going to be bloody. We might have some injuries coming out of this, but the Eagles are going to win this one.
Yeah, I think I heavily agree with that. I think this is going to be a trap game. I do believe the dynamic of Allen being able to run with McCoy back there, Singletary, and Beasley haunting us still. I do definitely think this is a trap game. I think at this point of the season, I think the Eagles will definitely be 7-2.
Oh, 7-2. Actually, no. I think if you have them losing this game, they will be 6-2, because they'll be you had them 3. We both had them 3-1 the first 4 games. If you have them 3-1 here, they're 6-2. I have them 4-0. After the next 4 games, I have them 7-1.
So then we're at 6-2. So far so good. It's looking like a really promising start so far. I mean, from our end, of course.
Yeah, we're looking at 7-1 or 6-2. Both should be good for first, or maybe even tied for first in the division. Both of us have the Eagles being 2-0 at this point in the division. So even if they're tied with the Cowboys record-wise, they should be ahead of them in the standings based on division. But it's getting closer and closer to the start of the season. Next week we'll go through the next 4 games. We'll go through. We're going to have another week of training camp this week, and our next episode, we're going to be a few days away from the first preseason game, so that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting. Like I said, we're going to have David on the show, broadcasting live from Eagles practice on Lincoln Financial Field. So it's definitely going to be an exciting episode. We definitely do ask that you guys get your questions in. I'll say this from my part. I know the first episode was kind of long, was lengthy, it was 2 hours, but we're Eagles fans. We were excited. We were in the moment. We were with Liam as well, who shares the same exact passion that we do here, even though he's overseas. So could you really blame us?
That's right. I mean, we're 2 people who like to talk, and we like to talk a lot more when it's about our Eagles. But you guys, you still listen to us, even though it was 2 hours. We kept it to about an hour for you guys today. Today. So we're hoping you play it again and share it with all your friends. If you have anything to add to what we said in this episode, feel free to tweet us. I'm at Infante54. That's infant with an E at the end. 54 on Twitter. Bryan's B Cameron PSN on Twitter. Feel free to, and we also have Flippin' Birds Pod on Twitter as well. Feel free to tweet at us, tell us why we're wrong, tell us why we're right, and let us know what you want to hear next week as well.
Yeah, definitely. Like always, Chris, it was definitely a pleasure, and I can't wait for next week, man. I'm not gonna lie. Next week's open practice, and then 4 days after that, we have preseason. And then Madden comes out next Friday, so for all you Madden fans as well.
Well, if all you Madden fans, if we have anybody who had hookups, I've been entering every single contest there is on Twitter that those people are like Madden giveaway #Madden20. I've been entering every single one. and I haven't gotten one yet. So if any of you have a hookup, let me know. I have Xbox One. Let me know, and we'll have you guest star on the podcast just for that.
Definitely, yeah. Send that this way, guys, and catch us next week on Flipping the Birds, episode 3.
That's right, go Birds.